The morning the ocean looked like polished glass. Marcus Hale stood barefoot in the sand, holding a paper cup of coffee that had already gone cold, wondering how a man could feel so visible and so invisible at the same time. The sun climbed slowly over the Atlantic, light spreading across the beach like a promise he wasn't sure he deserved anymore. He wasn't there to be noticed. He was there because the quiet before the crowds arrived felt like the only place where grief loosened its grip. What happened next would travel with him long after the tide erased their footprints, and it would quietly change two lives that had learned to brace for disappointment. Before the story pulls you under, take a second to support this channel. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that small moments can change everything, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach the hearts they're meant for. Marcus had moved to the Florida coast less than a year earlier, a decision made in exhaustion rather than ambition. After his wife passed from a sudden illness, the walls of their old house in Ohio felt too loud with memories. He came south with his 6-year-old son Noah, chasing the idea that salt air might heal what time hadn't yet touched. He worked remotely as a civil engineer, built routines like scaffolding around his days, and learned how to braid hair from online videos because Noah's curls had inherited his mother's stubborn beauty. Most mornings he walked the beach alone while Noah slept, letting the waves remind him that motion didn't always mean chaos. Across the dunes lived Hannah Brooks, a marketing consultant who wore competence like armor. She had learned early how to keep her gaze sharp and her boundaries sharper. Years in a male-dominated industry had taught her to anticipate assumptions before they arrived. She ran at dawn, headphones in, posture strong, eyes forward. The beach was her refuge too, a place where the horizon felt honest and the workday hadn't begun its tug yet. That morning her run slowed when she noticed Marcus standing still, his attention lowered, his shoulders heavy with a focus she interpreted too quickly. The moment passed fast, a glance misread, a breath tightened. Hannah felt the old irritation rise, the one that had protected her so many times before. She stopped, turned, and said the line she'd practiced in silence for years, the one that created space when space felt threatened. The words were sharp enough to cut the air. Marcus lifted his eyes, surprised not by the accusation but by how tired she sounded delivering it. He didn't bristle. He didn't defend himself. He didn't smile in that way that made explanations feel slippery. He simply acknowledged her humanity with his calm, and in doing so reflected something back to her that she hadn't expected to see. What Marcus had been looking at wasn't Hannah at all. It was a shell half buried near his feet, spiraled like a small galaxy. He had been thinking about Noah's fascination with the stars, and how his son asked questions that made Marcus feel both brave and small. His reply wasn't a speech or a clever turn of phrase. It was gentle, steady, and rooted in respect, the kind of response that doesn't ask for forgiveness but offers understanding. He explained without defensiveness, and then he apologized anyway, not because he was wrong, but because he recognized the weight she carried. The ocean seemed to pause. Hannah felt her chest loosen in a way she hadn't allowed in a long time. It wasn't the content of his reply that stayed with her, it was the tone. There was no hunger in it, no edge, just a man who had learned, through loss, how to be careful with other people's fears. She nodded, the heat in her cheeks unfamiliar, and continued her run with a different rhythm, one that felt less like escape and more like return. Over the next weeks, their paths crossed again, as paths do when routines overlap. Sometimes it was a nod from a distance, sometimes it was shared space near the waterline, both pretending not to notice the other, both noticing everything. Hannah began to see Marcus with Noah on weekends, building crooked sandcastles that collapsed into laughter. She noticed the patience in his movements, the way he listened with his whole body when his son spoke. Marcus noticed Hannah's discipline soften when she slowed near the tide, how she picked up trash others left behind, how she paused to watch pelicans dive like they knew something humans didn't. Life didn't suddenly become easy. Marcus still woke some nights with grief pressing on his ribs, and Hannah still carried the scars of being underestimated, interrupted, reduced. But something subtle had shifted. Their brief exchanges grew into shared mornings. Coffee appeared, then extra cups. The beach became a witness to quiet conversations that didn't need quotes to feel real. They talked about work without posturing, about fear without theatrics, about the strange relief of being seen accurately. The real test came when a storm rolled in, sudden and unkind, the kind that churned the sea into steel. Noah had been playing near the dunes, and a gust sent his kite skidding toward the water. Panic has a sound, and Marcus heard it before he saw it. Hannah was closer. She moved without hesitation, her runner's legs cutting through the wind, her focus precise. Together they brought Noah back to safety, hearts pounding, rain soaking through clothes and resolve. Later, wrapped in towels on Marcus's porch, the storm drumming its apology on the roof, something unspoken settled between them. Trust, maybe, or the recognition that strength doesn't always announce itself. Near the end of summer, Hannah confessed the truth she had never meant to share. The line she'd thrown that first morning wasn't about Marcus at all. It was about years of being looked through, talked over, treated as scenery instead of substance. Marcus listened the way he always did, without fixing, without interrupting. He didn't claim to understand her experiences, and that honesty mattered more than any agreement. He shared his own truth in return, about how loss had stripped him of assumptions, leaving him with a simpler rule: be kind first, because you never know the weight someone is carrying. As autumn approached, the beach thinned and the light grew gentler. Hannah found herself waking earlier than necessary, not to run away from the day, but to meet it. Marcus found that grief still visited, but it no longer sat alone. Noah began to ask when Hannah would be there, and Marcus learned how hope can feel like a responsibility and a gift at the same time. If this story is touching something in you, please take a moment right now to like the video, share it with someone who believes in quiet courage, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps these stories reach people who need a reminder that respect can change a moment, and a moment can change a life. On a morning that mirrored the first, the ocean calm and bright, Marcus and Hannah stood side by side, not performing happiness, just practicing it. There was no grand declaration, no cinematic swell of music. There was simply the understanding that two people had met at the edge of their defenses and chosen gentleness instead. Hannah realized that boundaries didn't have to be weapons, they could be bridges when met with care. Marcus realized that love didn't need to rush to prove itself. It could arrive quietly and stay. Before this story ends, I have a special request. If you've ever misread someone or been misread yourself, leave a comment with a single word that describes what you felt while watching. Those words matter more than you know. The tide rolled in, the shells shifted, and the day moved forward. Somewhere between the sound of the waves and the steady breathing of a child building another castle, two neighbors found a different way to see each other. Not up, not down, just clearly. And sometimes that's enough to change everything.